Spoiler warning, this video contains major spoilers for the first 2 episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist 2003, but anything afterwards is only very minor spoilers. So, you have been warned.
That was Edward!
Wait when we look!
My brother and I knew the laws of science, of equivalent exchange. That gain required sacrifice, that something had to be taken from us. But we thought there was nothing more we could lose. We were wrong.
Life and death. 2 universal truths that Edward and Alphonse Elric dared to challenge in their basement after years of research into the miraculous science of alchemy. Their father had left, their mother had died. You couldn't blame them for thinking that there was nothing more for them to lose. But on that night when they tried to bring their mother back to life, they almost threw away the one last remaining thing that they had forgotten they had. Each other and the bonds they shared.
Alphonse, do something! Hell no! Stay with me! Damn it! This wasn't supposed to... What have I done? He's gone.
By the time the dust had settled, Edward had lost his right arm and left leg, and Al's body had been taken. His soul now only existing in the mortal realm by being bound to a suit of armor. They didn't know the risk of trying to bring back the dead, only that it was forbidden, and they paid the price. The only thing left for them now was to move forward and never look back. So the story begins in this amazing tale of the 2 brothers, Alphonse and Edward Elric. That is a basic introduction to 2003's Fullmetal Alchemist, the original adaptation to Hiromu Arakawa's manga of the same name. It also happens to be my favorite anime, making it the perfect show to discuss on the channel's first anime-centered video. So without further ado, my name is Lakaidim, and this is Fullmetal Alchemist 2003.
We were done making dolls and roses.
Water, 35 liters. Carbon, 20 kilograms. Ammonia, 4 liters. Lime, 1.5 kilograms. Phosphorus, 800 grams.
Salt, 250 grams. Saltpeter, 100. Sulfur, 80. Fluorine, 7.5. Iron, 5. Silicone, 3 grams.
And trace amounts of 15 other elements. Yeah, that's everything. The physical ingredients of a human body. Now, if we can just put together a soul, we should be able to call Mom back from the other side.
To attain something of equal value must be lost. That is the law of equivalent exchange, the one overarching law of alchemy. The attempt of bringing humans back to life is a taboo known as human transmutation. The Elrics had tried and failed at this ritual-like experiment, but a handful of materials isn't equivalent to human life. In fact, nothing is. Needless to say, the boys had learned the hard way that nothing is equivalent to the price of a human soul, and there is no way to bring back the dead no matter how hard you might try or no matter what you may be willing to sacrifice. But necromancy isn't the only thing alchemy is used for in the world of Fullmetal Alchemist. It can also be used to heal the injured or become a devastating weapon in war, easily capable of bringing about a mass genocide. These living weapons are the state alchemists, members of the military.
I hate deserts. It's nothing but sand. If there was some grass, I could turn it into bread. I'm starving.
We first join the Elric brothers in the desert oasis of Lior, where they hear about a mysterious prophet known as Father Cornello, who performs miracles in the name of the sun god Leto. The boys' interest was piqued. As plagued with overwhelming guilt, Edward had devoted himself to finding a way to restore Alphonse to his normal body. After a long time of researching, Edward had finally come across stories of a stone known as the Philosopher's Stone, a relic said to allow one to bypass the law of equivalent exchange, allowing one to attain something for nothing. The laws of alchemy said that this was impossible, but Edward decided if there was even a chance, it was real. He had to look for it. So the brothers, unconvinced by the prospect of holy miracles, suspected the father of having a philosopher's stone. They go to see the father and his miracles, find that he was indeed performing what could be called miracles, but these so-called miracles looked like normal alchemy to the brothers.
What do you think?
Well, it looks pretty obvious. He's using alchemy.
Yeah, but still, something's wrong.
They had met a woman named Rose, who had brought them to the temple where the father presided. The fraudulent prophet started to panic. Aware of the infamous Edward Elric, the state alchemist who was certified at the young age of 12, the boy they called the Fullmetal Alchemist. He orders the brothers attacked, and a man shows up and shoots Alphonse in the back of his helmet, having no effect on his empty armored shell that had become his body. The boys win, but end up scaring off Rose, whom they give chase to. Soon, they find themselves in front of Father Cornello himself, who begins to recite his religious lies and unleashes a chimera upon the boys, which is killed after a brief fight. Rose had been looking on in fear, wanting the father to prevail so she could bring her boyfriend back to life, a desire and a temptation that Edward and Alphonse knew all too well. Edward knew she wanted a human to come back to life, and shows her his automail arm and leg, the product of his sin.
That's impossible! Those claws on your leg, the teeth on your arm! No one could survive that! Unless... your limbs, they're fake!
Brilliant deduction.
Oh, God.
Don't look away, Rose. You need to see what happens when you try to bring a human to life. When you cross into God's territory, or whatever the hell it is. Is this what you want? Look!
His arm, his leg, they're machines.
The brothers are forced to run, and Rose is reassured by the father, who shows her how he brought back her boyfriend.
Rose?
Cain.
Rose?
The sun gods rewarded you for your faith, Rose. Your true love's soul has been resurrected. But the work is not finished yet. His body still needs a few more days.
I always believed it. This really has been the work of God. If Ed knew.
The boys become hunted by the townspeople for their attempt on the father's life, and are soon attacked by large rock statues of the so-called sun god Leto. Captured and locked in a cell, stripped of his state alchemist watch, Edward smirks, knowing he could break out any time since the father mistakenly thought that the watch was the secret to Edward using alchemy without a transmutation circle. Meanwhile, Rose is shown the true horrors of what Cornello had done to bring back her boyfriend. This is the first scene in this 2003 adaptation that truly hits home the fact that the dead cannot be brought back to life.
Sorry, Cain, I know you're healing, but I just needed to talk. So much has happened and I'm confused.
Rose?
I'm sorry, Father. I shouldn't have taken the key without asking. I just needed to see.
What's wrong, Rose? You got your wish. I'm afraid that even with the stone, I couldn't forge a human soul. I had to use the souls of these birds. You know, they can be quite adept at mimicking the human voice. You shouldn't have acted against me, Rose. You've fallen out of the sun god's favor. Give the real Cain my best.
Rose!
There's only one soul left who knows the secret of the stone, but not for long.
I guess I don't need to tell you it's dangerous here. Come on.
As it would happen, Edward and Alphonse had a plan to expose the prophet. Their plan goes into motion when Alphonse activates a megaphone at the same time as Edward is having a conversation with the Father Cornello. The conversation is played loudly for all.
What? Is it the money you're after?
Edward?
Oh, I can get all the money I want from the offerings. But you think too small. I'm making believers who would gladly throw away their very lives in my name. And why not? They believe I can resurrect them. They aren't afraid to die. There is no greater army than those with a holy call. Mark my words. In a few years, I'll have a following large enough to tear this country apart and rebuild it in my name!
Makes no difference to me.
What?
After all, there's no real way to bring people back to life, right? Once you cut me down, I'm gone for good.
I'm afraid that's right. Even with the Philosopher's Stone, I wouldn't dare try human alchemy. I'd end up like you. And why would a king risk his life for the sake of his mindless pawns? Wait a second. What? How long has that thing been on?
Long enough for the mindless pawns tearing this country apart comment, I think.
How did you get my broadcasting equipment?
Al rigged it up. I know, you smashed him into pieces, but that was just some metal I whipped up to look like him. Pretty clever, huh?
No, my children, he lies! Don't believe him!
The father runs out to his swarm of believers who have gathered outside the church and try to retract and go back on his previous statements. But Edward intervenes and stops the prophet by controlling the statue of his own god.
I'm warning you, give it up.
You didn't fool me with that little display down there. Without this, the only alchemy you can perform is to your own metal arm.
Know what? You're not the only one who can't stand doubters preach. Here's the real hammer of God.
I don't believe it. Not even the Philosopher's Stone could move something as big as that.
Rings and watches have nothing to do with it. My brother's the Fullmetal Alchemist.
No! I won't let you have it! You can't take the stone!
What the? It's recoiling. An imitation? After all this, all the trouble you put me through, even the stone's a fake? Stop jerking me around!
Cornell's Philosopher's Stone turned out to be a fake. Edward and Alphonse had failed to attain a real stone. Now the town was without religion, the boys had failed to meet their goal, and Rose was stripped of meaning. Now unsure of what she should do now that any chance of her boyfriend being brought back to life had disappeared. In desperation, she lashes out at Edward, telling him to tell her what to do. And that's when he says the line that I think truly encapsulates his character's philosophy in the series.
You'll have to decide for yourself. Walk on your own. Move forward. You've got a good, strong pair of legs, Rose. You should get up and use them.
All of this is just from the first 2 episodes of the series. Now that I've given perspective on just how much the show has to it, I'm not going to summarize any more of the show. Instead, I will be going over different things and how the show pulls its plot progression, filled with action and emotion in such a way that is unrivaled, except for the 2009 adaptation of the same manga, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which will have its own separate video. Though Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 builds its world and characters fantastically, There are 3 characters that stand out from the crowd for being the most fleshed out and best developed characters in the show. Edward and Alphonse are by far and away the most developed and the most interesting. Their characters experiencing far more and growing much more in a shorter period of time than any other adaptation of the series. The third character I had mentioned would have to be Roy Mustang, who definitely has a lot of development in this series, although it's not quite as much as he would get in something like Brotherhood. As I said before, 2003 is truly a tale of the 2 brothers, focusing entirely on them and not really giving as much attention to the world and the other characters. Normally I'd say that that's a bad thing, as it's always better to build up the world around you and the other characters as well. But the way that this show adapts the manga that was available at the time and continues into its own anime original ending and content has so many high points and pretty much no low points throughout it. This increased focus on the 2 brothers becomes very clear when after the Lior story arc, we are sent back in the timeline and given a lengthy 7-episode flashback on how the Elrics got to where they are at the end of Lior. But instead of a flashback, let's go with the flash forward, as everything covered in the flashback alone could very well be its own video. But where are we jumping forward to? Well, we are going to jump straight into the part that makes people not even look at this show anymore. The fact that the ending is anime only. 2003 is overall much darker and much more depressing than any other version of the series. Events like the genocide in Ishbal are portrayed as even more gruesome than before, with even more tragedy occurring to all the characters involved. There is more betrayal in the series. Edward and Alphonse find themselves attached to the homunculi by blood this time. Hell, we find out one of them is in possession of Edward's missing arm and leg. The Edward we get by the end is also very different than any other. He is more cynical than the Edward from the manga or Brotherhood because of everything he has experienced in the anime-only part of the show. He has watched countless horrors unfold before him, and the only thing keeping him upright is his brother Alphonse. There is also one other thing that drives Ed: his sheer determination and anger towards everything in the world. He is enraged at characters like Dante, who is the mastermind behind the homunculi, Shao Tucker, a man who combined his own daughter with a dog in order to keep his state alchemist license. He's also angry at his own father Hohenheim, taking up and leaving them and their mother when they were young, and now being the reason that Dante is doing everything she's doing with the homunculi, which is the main conflict of the show. Edward's anger drives him forward no matter how much his regrets try to weigh him down in 2003. And he is also a very charismatic and relatable character because of that. In the second half of the series, where Edward has his most dramatic changes to his character, you can make out the change of his perspective just by the titles of the openings in that part of the show. The third opening, Undo, comes at a time in the series where Edward's regrets have continued to grow along with his anger at himself. Everyone around him starts to hurt more than ever because of the decisions he made when he could have gone another route which would have prevented them. And then there's the fourth opening, Rewrite, which is where Edward's determination really kicks into gear as he goes to rewrite the narrative and correct the mistakes of his past, no matter what the cost may be. And so the brothers end up going to the forgotten city that lies under Central, and starts what I find to be one of the best endings I've ever seen in any pieces of media. Even though by this point there is barely even 10 episodes left in the show's runtime, we see so much more and many more secrets are unraveled, as well as having shocking turning points like Edward being transported to London as it was in 1921. But when the show ends, it is very bittersweet. While they accomplish their goal in the end, they find themselves separated from one another and have lost even more than they had previously. The only consolation being that the nightmarish reality they had lived in for the prior 50 episodes had now come to a close. As I said before, Fullmetal Alchemist is my favorite anime, but it is also one that I had dreaded to watch prior to watching it because of the stigma around its ending. But what I ended up getting was a much darker story that I wouldn't have expected, that hit harder emotionally more than Brotherhood ever did or could have hoped to do, simply because the way 2003 presents itself, and it feels way more human than Brotherhood. And no matter how long this video is or how good it is, I can never ever do the series justice. Trust me, I tried to write a script that could do the series justice and ran out of ways to describe how great it is. So if you haven't watched Fullmetal Alchemist, I highly, highly recommend it, more than I would any other anime. And yeah, you won't regret it. As always, my name's Akaidem. Thank you for watching. If you have any feedback on how this video is structured, or just really any feedback at all, I'd love to hear it, because I do want to improve all the content I post on here. So yeah, if you have any feedback of any kind, please leave it in the comments below. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'll stream 4 days a week over on Twitch, so make sure to check that out for streams and such. I may even be live right now. But if I'm not, there are always more videos to check out on the channel if you are interested. And without further ado, have a good day.